Hello, my fellow humans, and welcome to the Multiverse Podcast, Cybersecurity Edition. In this episode, Craig Taylor comes back and joins us, the CEO of CyberHoot and author of the article Identity Theft Protection, which reveals the uncomfortable truth of identity protection industry doesn't want you to hear. Credit monitoring won't stop identity theft, but credit freeze can. Craig breaks down why nearly all information needed to open fraudulent accounts, such as your social security number, your name, address, and birthday, have already been leaked in breaches like the NPD and countless others. He uses relatable analogies to drive home the point. Relying on credit monitoring is like counting on the fire station across the street to save your house after it's already on fire. And Ben Franklin wisely said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. A credit freeze is that ounce of prevention. Welcome back, Craig, to the podcast.
Justin, thanks for having me again. It's great to be here once more. Really enjoyed it last time, and I'll enjoy it today.
And I'm excited to get into this subject because I know we talked a little bit off camera about this, and I actually ended up going through these things that we're going to talk about myself, and I had to protect myself more. You can't do it and preach it without doing it.
Right.
You don't know what you don't know until you talk to us, and then you know.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, let's dive into this. Identity theft protection. What is it? Why do we need it? And how can we help ourselves stay protected?
Well, this is one of the kind of the cybersecurity / financial industry's dirty little secrets, if you will, if you want to be truthful about it. All of us have a credit score. Whether we know what it is or we don't, someone out there, multiple companies out there have our identity, our credit score, and are monetizing it to sell to other people. When you get an offer at a department store or a home renovation store like Home Depot or Lowe's to sign up for their, local credit card, and you fill out the paperwork, the first thing that every single vendor out there does to authorize you is they pull your credit score. And that's what hackers do when they try to steal your identity. But what's protecting us are two things. In the past, I'm thinking 15, 20 years ago, hackers didn't have our social security number and our date of birth and our home address and our salary information. That's no longer true. All of our personal private data is out there. You mentioned in the intro the NPD breach. That's the National Public Database. It's a clearinghouse for financial credit scores for people. It has your addresses, your former salaries, your more information about your credit, your social security number. It was exposed and breached last fall. In fact, if you search for NPD breach database, you can go find a website to put your name in there. And with a little bit of additional identification for proving who you are to the website, you can see how many times your social security number is paired with your full name, is paired with your address and all of that. I checked my own self and I had 12 entries. 4 of them were for another Craig Taylor. The 8 were mine, and they listed all the addresses I'd lived at in the last 25 years. And that's what hackers need to get to take out credit in our name, to get a credit card or a loan or some other financial instrument alongside our credit score. The second piece they need is our credit score. If they know all the financial data and our credit score, they can probably get credit in our name. Now, what happens when there's a breach? You get a letter in the mail, right? Have you gotten these? I know I have, Justin. It says, Your data was breached. We're very sorry. We're going to offer you credit monitoring in case somebody does something bad with your name and your address and your data and takes out credit in your name. And as you said in the beginning, it's a little bit too late. It's like living beside that fire station and hoping that if your house catches fire, they'll put it out really quickly. But your house is still on fire. Why not stop the fire from starting to begin with? And that's what you can do with a freeze on your credit. But if you freeze your credit, guess what happens? Those credit agencies can't monetize you. They can't sell your data to others to offer you more credit cards and loans and all the different financial instruments that are out there. So It's this little secret. I think it's a dirty little secret that when your data has been breached, they offer you monitoring, which is pretty much useless
Makes you
when you
feel good,
think about
like
it.
they're doing
Makes you
something
feel good,
about it,
but it doesn't stop people from monetizing you. So I don't.
right?
It's one of those things I'm trying to address.
Now, let me ask you this, because I've come across this. What's the difference between putting a freeze on your credit and locking your credit? And are they the same thing, or do you need both, or one or the other?
I think those terms are interchangeable. If you lock your credit score, it's probably the same as freezing it in most of the credit agencies' eyes. I don't think they're distinguished. It's very different, though, from a monitor. A monitor basically says, has anything changed today? Nope. Okay, you're safe. Has anything changed tomorrow? Nope. Okay, you're safe. But on the third day, it could have changed. Somebody could take out another $2,000 credit card in your name with your data that's been on the NPD breach. And all of a sudden, you're unaware of it if you're not monitoring. But let's say you're monitoring and you get notified, hey, your credit score went down because you got a new credit card in your name, but you didn't do it.
No, I
Now, what
didn't.
do? You have to go figure out where it was opened. You have to go figure out who opened it. If it wasn't you, then you got to prove that it wasn't you and get it closed. And there's a lot of work involved. Now, I will say this, Justin, there's one service out there that I'm aware of. It's not just a credit monitor, but it's a legal representation of you. It includes things like if someone steals your identity, despite all these things that are going on, they steal your identity, it will help pay the legal fee bill, all these different pieces that are part of the puzzle of identity in the eyes of the courts to prove you are who you say you are so you can get your identity back and shut down the imposters. That service, I don't think, is a bad idea. It's a little bit more than just credit monitoring. It's more of
I've
the
never heard of
legal.
that before.
Yeah, I think it's part of. I don't want to quote any one service out here, but there might rhyme with Life Bach. I don't know. I think they have it.
Those guys that Norton Security always talks about.
Yeah, and if it does do that, it might be a little worthwhile to pay for that because it
Yeah.
can be time consuming to go to court, take a day off work, wait for your turn to come up, say, "Hey, I am who I say I am. Look, it's me, Craig Taylor, and I promise you, I am who I say I am." But they'll send lawyers to do that for you with the appropriate documentation and that sort of thing.
So all that you just discussed about having to go to court, having to react to everything to get your life back, it seems like no matter what, if something happens, you have to go through hell. But then you can prevent from going through that hell by actually putting these things in place to actually operate from a proactive standpoint in your life. I feel like why would you want to be reactive on this, not be proactive and take care of it, not go through all that stress?
You and I both know this, Justin, but it's worth saying here, cybersecurity and what we're talking about specifically with identity theft are people don't know what they don't know with regards to both topics. They don't know
That's
they
so
have to
true.
freeze their credit. They hear all the time in the media, well, we're going to monitor your credit for you because you were part of this breach or that breach, and they don't realize there's a better alternative. So we're helping fix that today. And yes, it can be a lot of time and it can be a lot of trouble if you could prevent it. And I think freezing your credit will prevent most of the events that I'm talking about. Not all of them, though. Someone could still pretend to be Justin Walker or Craig Taylor if they're not taking out a credit instrument, right? You can maybe file paperwork in another state to get a driver's license if you have all the necessary materials. I don't think they check your credit when they're filing for a driver's license. So there are other
Maybe they
ways to take
should.
advantage or steal identities than just financial. This locking your credit won't prevent that from happening, but it will prevent it. It will make you, two things will happen. Anyone that tries to pull your credit and gets this denial, they know they're dealing with someone that's on the smarts with cybersecurity because most people don't freeze their credit, they just monitor it. So that's a deterrent to doing anything more, right? Because the person that you're trying to take advantage of clearly knows what's going on. It's like lighting up your house and having a guard dog outside and a fence around the outside and cameras and big bolted doors. It dissuades people from trying to break in because there's probably an easier house down the street or in another neighborhood.
Ooh, I like
That's what
that.
you want to do.
I like how you put that. I'm trying to figure out here, is there any way for us to not get our information out there? Is there any way to protect ourselves completely besides just freezing our credit?
It depends
We've
on
been told the
how old
lie
you
of
are.
the monitoring, you know? We've been told the
Yes.
lie of just monitor. Here it is, you're safe. I've talked to some coworkers about things like this. They're like, oh, I get this monitoring in the mail. I'm fine. I'm like, but that's not all there is to it.
That's right. There's more to it. I think, and Steve Gibson said this on his podcast, which he runs another podcast on security topics, but he said, if you're over 25, all your data is already out there in multiple places. On the dark web, in hacker forums, in public forums, in all the sorts of different places.
You're making
It's
me
almost
sweat,
too
man.
late. But there are services that you could use to reduce your footprint online. I personally, and I use a service called Delete Me. I've paid for a membership, and I get these wonderful emails every once in a while. They say, we found you somewhere and we removed you. So here you go. Thank you. You're welcome. And I think that's a good start to reduce your footprint. I think some common best practices around social media accounts, where if you don't have to be friends with everybody in the world, don't be. Like, don't accept any old friends request, just the people you actually know. This goes for LinkedIn, Facebook, X, whatever you're doing. Beyond that, I think it's important to limit what you do post in those places, right? We all know the kind of common sense thing. Hey, I'm going on vacation. Don't post that because you're
I'll be
inviting
gone for
hackers
2
to come
weeks.
break into your house. I think most of us know that. However, it's also important not to, post publicly about your dog having an expensive vet bill, because you're going to get a discount invoice from that veterinarian in a fake email from a hacker who will want you to open that invoice, and it'll be booby-trapped with malware or a link to a malicious website, or it'll reach into your computer and steal your session token. And suddenly the hacker will be in your email or any other logged on accounts. The more you share online, the bigger the attack surface. It's that simple. You want to keep your online presence to a minimum, particularly if you're a person of importance. If you're in a C-suite for a company, you're going to be targeted way more than
100%.
administrative assistant at the front desk. Although they're targeted too, because they often have access to the CEO's
They're the
inbox.
gatekeeper.
Yeah, so if you're an admin assistant or the CEO, you're going to be targeted. Just be aware of that.
I've actually had it happen where I've had a couple of profiles come up on Facebook where it looked like say my dad or a friend. I reached out to them like, did you create this new profile? That no. Brings me to also, I remember talking to a sheriff's one time, where he was talking about parents who have stickers on their car about my proud student goes to this school, my proud student is in this whatever group. And that's a good way of tracking down where those kids go, where they live and all that as well. People forget about that. You're giving these guys free advertisement on the back of your car or on your Facebook or whatever it is, so they can find you.
Yep. It's a sad commentary that we have to be a little bit more private with our personal information, but it's true and it's honest, because look, the internet opened our front door of our house to anyone, anywhere alive today. It could be on the back streets of Nairobi. It could be on the front porch of downtown Atlanta. It doesn't matter. The whole world is on our doorstep, and we can't share like we might share with our neighbor online, because it's just not safe.
It's not, man. It's a crazy world out there. This might be a little off topic, but it kind of brings up the whole topic of open source intelligence, OSINT. They're like, if you're, say, doing a podcast, for example, they can kind of see the buildings outside my window. They can use that photo of those pictures to determine where I live and what neighborhood I'm in and everything, and find me. They do things like that. People forget about that stuff also. You really have to be so careful. It's crazy. How much you have to just really watch what you're doing and putting out there, because they'll find all the ways to do it. Whew. It's a crazy world we live in, man. So let's say I'm a normal person. I'm like, well, this sounds like a lot of work, a lot of things to go through. I don't understand what you guys are talking about here. but how can we really take steps to protect ourselves from people getting our information? Because like when there are breaches, that's not technically our fault
No,
because
it's not.
they lost my information. But at the same time, could I give them different emails? Should I leave my credit card information in accounts I don't use anymore? Like, what are some things there to do?
So here's a couple of tips that I can share.
Yeah.
One tip is you can use something like Apple Pay on your phone to pay for any purchases, and you're not putting any of your credit card information that you've loaded into Apple Pay at risk, because they create a one-time hash that says here's the credit card and the expiry date and the CVV and the zip code, and they jumble it all up into a hash that represents that, and that's what's in Apple Pay. And the Apple Pay app says John Doe wants to buy this thing. Here's his hash for the credit card. And it'll go out to Visa, MasterCard and say, is this a valid hash? And Visa, MasterCard know to check that against Apple Pay. And it says yes or no. But if they catch the hash, there's no way to reverse it into your credit card. So it's a one-time translation. So it's very safe and very secure, and it protects your credit cards from being stolen when you're using it to pay at all these different kiosks and places, right? That you might have heard that at gas stations or any of these tap to pays, sometimes hackers will put a fake one on top of the real one, and they'll scan your credit card information. So Apple Pay is a great way to secure against that. That's one thing. The other thing is to freeze your credit. And we haven't said where and how to do that. So there is an article that we've drafted at cyberhoot.com/blog. If you go there and there's a search box at the top, just type in identity -theft. I believe there's a dash in it. And you'll find the article that lists the 6, 7, or 8 different credit agencies you've got to freeze your credit at. We probably all heard of the top 3: Experian, Equifax, and what's the third one? Experian, Equifax, TransUnion.
Wait, there's more than 3?
Yeah, there's another big one called Innovis. Those are the big 4. That's what, if you ask anybody, they'll name 3. If you said, I know there's 4, they'll say Innovis, but there are actually more, just as the NPD breach showed us. That was a clearinghouse that they fed data to TransUnion and to Experian and these other credit agencies. Well, they're considered a credit agency in and of itself. It's a smaller regional one. They were breached and our data was put out there. But you can freeze it at multiple places. You need to do them all. And that article will list the 7 or 8 that you have to go. Now, you've just done this, right, Justin?
Yeah.
Some are paper-based. Talk about that for a moment. That must have been painful. What did you have to do?
They wanted me to print out a form in 2025 and fill it out and then use something called pigeon mail or the post office and send it to them. I'm goodness. Who do you think you are?
My article was mentioned on Steve Gibson's podcast, and hundreds and thousands of people came to our website. There were 2 like that. And because of the influx of paper requests, they actually created an online, freeze my credit form on their website for one of the 7 that now support it in response to that. So we're making changes in the world. I love it. Maybe this 8th one will be smart enough to stop making us print paper and kill trees.
Yeah, it took me a good time to go through all of them. And a lot of them also, you could set it up online, but they wanted to send you something in the mail for verification also. I guess maybe to make sure you live at that address to verify it's you. So it did take I want to say at least 1 to 2 hours for me to go through everything. If I didn't have the account, I had to create the accounts and get it all set up, and now they're active.
Isn't it funny how those accounts that you create to lock and unlock your credit, right, don't support multi-factor authentication?
I noticed that. I was actually seeing they're looking for it. I'm like, wait, where's the MFA on here? I had to go back to the article and it said, oh, some of these do not. I'm like,
can you believe it?
I emailed them too. I Facebooked them. I was like, do you guys have MFA? And they didn't respond to me. They had this like auto response.
No, they don't. Some of them don't, which is shocking and a crime in and of itself. I want to share with your listeners what you can expect after you lock your credit. What will happen? So
freedom.
This is there is a certain amount of
Peace of
confidence and
mind.
swagger and peace of mind that you'll get from not having to worry
Yeah.
about your credit. Because listen, a good friend of mine is a mortgage agent, and she told me in the last 5 years she sat down to close on a house 3 times, and the closing attorney comes in and says, "We can't close. You didn't report this $10,000 loan you have outstanding, or 1,000 or 5,000, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. It's a small or big amount." And they're like, "I don't know what that is. It's not mine." And it turns out it was an identity theft, and a credit was open in their name, but they had no idea. So it totally stopped the purchase of a home, not because their credit was frozen, but because it was stolen, right? So that's one thing that you're going to be able to avoid. Okay. But let's say you have, like my daughter and I, we had to buy a car one time. Went into the Honda dealer, and we were looking to buy, and they wanted to finance it. And they said, "Oh, well, wait a minute. If I'm co-signing, you can't get my credit. Tell me what your credit agency that you go pull credit from is." And they said, "Oh, we get this all the time. More and more people are freezing their credit. We pull from Experian." So I go to the unlock or the unfreeze page for Experian. You can Google that, or you can ask AI now, what is the unfreeze webpage for Experian? It'll bring it up. And on that webpage, they don't all do this, but this one did. It says, who's going to pull your credit and how long do you want to unfreeze your account for? So you can actually limit it to say Honda USA is going to pull my credit. I give them permission, and I only want it until the end of the week. Like, I give them a couple of days, right? If I said just today and then they didn't get to it today and they pulled tomorrow, it would fail. So give them a couple of days. And then we got the car. It was that easy. But, mileage may vary on your own unfreezing of credit. It can sometimes take time. You have to have a password manager, for example, to know what the unique, long, and strong password is to your unfreeze credit agency account, because you're creating accounts at all these places, and you don't want to have any semblance of similar passwords wherever you're going. That's another
Wait,
big
can you repeat
problem.
that one again about similar passwords? I want to make sure we're clear on that one for people.
Every single password you use needs to be unique, randomly generated by your password manager, stored in a password manager, protected by multi-factor. All your critical accounts have to have their own multi-factor turned on, and adopt passkeys whenever they're available. It's a far superior solution to even MFA, but you have to have unique 15-character passwords wherever you go. You do have to remember your master password to your password manager. That is the one
I even hired a
passphrase.
security guard also for mine. So yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So there's all of that. And we have a blog on password managers as well. If you search for the term last straw in that same blog, you'll find how to pick a good password manager article. It gives you 5 criteria to go by. The first and foremost is find a vendor who does really good vulnerability and pen testing and application security reviews of their password manager, because not all the vendors out there making password managers.
Not going to name one right now. That's a very red logo, but
Well, it rhymes with last straw, right?
Yeah, not going to name them.
So anyways, there is that, but that's really important. So that's one experience. Now, here's another experience that you could run into. My wife and I were at Lowe's, and we wanted to buy a new washer and dryer. Ours completely went on the fritz. It died. A 20-year-old washer just couldn't handle anything anymore. And so we're in there and we're looking at all these fancy new things. And they go, the Lowe's account person said, "Hey, if you sign up for our Pro card, you'll be able to get 40% off as a special one-time thing." This was over Memorial Day weekend, right? Oh my God, let's do that. So I knew it. I knew I was going to get rejected because I have my credit frozen. Actually, it was a good test of things, right? So I said, okay, I'll fill out the paperwork, and I did it. My wife was out shopping in the store, and they rejected me. They couldn't pull my credit. So it was great because it proved that my credit was locked, and they didn't even have a process to check or unfreeze or tell me where to unfreeze. They're like, "I don't even know where we pull it from." They just don't have that kind of maturity at a department store like credit card scenario. So my wife applied, and I shouldn't be saying this on live air, but she got approved because her credit might not be locked at that time.
But it's like 20 years ago. It's okay.
Yeah. So you might find certain vendors, when you want to get credit in your name, won't have a process to tell you where they go, how to unfreeze, where you can unfreeze for a particular amount of time. I would have had to unfreeze at all 3 of the big ones, because I'm guaranteeing they don't use Innovis. They're probably Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. I could have left those off
I agree. And I know once I locked and froze all mine, I felt a lot more peace, a lot more security, like knowing I'm doing the right thing for myself and letting the
Mhm.
audience know. So, what are some myths you encountered around identity theft? So I'm sure we all have these beliefs that we think, oh, it might not happen to me, or I'm safe, or it's never gonna ever happen to anyone I know.
You just named them, a lot of them, right? It won't happen to me. I don't have enough money. I'm not a target because I don't have great credit, and I don't have enough money for them to steal, or I don't have a big profile online. The reality is if you own a credit card, if you've ever purchased a vehicle, if you've owned a house, if you filled out an apartment rental application form, there's a credit file for you that's been stolen somewhere. And so they have your data. It's not like you can hide online because you haven't been posting on social media. That's not true
I hear
anymore.
that all the time.
All of our data is frozen. We started to talk about this and I forgot to mention it. If you have a child who is under 25, sign them up for Delete Me and keep their data offline so it can't be stolen. They'll make sure it's removed from all the normal, everyday places, and they have a huge laundry list of common places that people put their sensitive financial information, and they get it all expunged and removed. So you could sign your child up for a Delete Me service, and maybe there's a chance you could protect some of their identity stealing information from being exposed or breached in the future. It's not likely, but it is possible. So that's another thing I
Start
would consider.
somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. I use Delete Me myself. I also started using the one that you told me about, pentester.com. I noticed the huge differences in the two. The Pentester one's actually does a little bit more deep diving, a little more head work than Delete Me does. Delete Me maybe does between 80 and 100 brokers, depending on what subscription you have. But I was using Pentester. It really goes through the social media. It can do facial recognition, finds even your IP address, like everything. It's a really deep dive through everything you have online. It knows from what you tell it, what email you put in there, what addresses you put in there. And it gives you a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
It's very well rounded. I have both, and they're both amazing.
Good, good. There's other things that your listeners might want to know about, and that is you have privacy protection laws in place. If you're listening to this in the EU, you've got the GDPR, General Data Privacy Regulation. And there's a lot of rights that go with that. You can ask any company, what data do you have on me? Can I correct it? Can you delete it for me? Tell me you'll never sell it to anyone else. I don't want to be sold to. I don't want you tracking me with cookies, and they have to oblige by that. There's all sorts of data privacy regulations that are pretty solid around the world. In Canada, there's PIPEDA. There's a similar one in Australia. In the US, we have really good laws in California, CCPA, California Consumer Protection Act. There's similar legislation in New York State. But in the US, as you probably all recognize, it's a state by state thing. It's not a national standard, which would make it easier
Sure,
to police and to implement and to secure. But you're at the vagaries of each state. But you do have rights. And so if you have a vendor that's kind of playing hardball with you, tell them that you're going to file a privacy request and say, I want to know every bit of data you have on me, and I want it deleted. And I want you never to sell it to anybody. And you should be able to get that done. There are also privacy services that Justin has mentioned and others out there that will help you with these kinds of requests.
So much good information and good nuggets here. We talked a lot about personal data privacy and identity theft. How does that relate to our listeners out there who have small businesses? Is it the same? Does it matter to them? Are they still targets?
Well, businesses have scores at the Better Business Bureau. They have credit scoring it's a little bit less
Done.
Dun and Bradstreet, and it's a little less formal in my mind than I think the credit score of an individual is. I don't think businesses can say, oh, our credit score is 782, and that means we can borrow money at this rate. But businesses are treated differently because they all operate in different market segments that are growing, contracting, successful, competitive, wide open. There's just a lot of different factors. I know banks that want to lend to a business, they don't typically do it based on a score they pull off an internet site. They sit down with the owner and say, well, tell me about your business plan. And how is your revenue looking this year versus last year, and your EBITDA and all that stuff? So I think businesses play a little differently when it comes to identity theft. However, However, here's a tip. In our platform at CyberHoot, we do a type of squatted domain name search. And when you sign up for services with us, so we'll take your domain name. Let's say it's multiversepodcast.com, and it will spit out to me and to you, Justin, any domain name that has one letter difference from multiversepodcast.com. It'll say, oh, we found one called multiversepodcast.cam, or we found one multiversep0dcast.com, where the O in podcast is turned into a zero. All these different techniques are used to attack your businesses. If you're listening to this, you're a business owner. These domain names are registered so that a hacker can send an email to your staff member knowing that that staff member is going to take a quick look at the domain name if they're good. And if it looks like the domain name you're used to seeing, they're going to action whatever it is, even and especially when it comes from the CEO, the CFO, or CTO, or senior person.
You got to get those banners put in place.
External
Came from outside
banners.
your organization.
Bingo. That is another big tip, is to protect your business. You want to put a banner up. What Justin is talking about is those big red strips that are at the beginning of the email, or sometimes they're at the bottom of the email, that say, warning, this email came from outside your organization. And sometimes really good mail providers will say, warning, this domain looks very similar to your domain. Like they'll do their own little type of squatted search, and they'll give you a warning to say, this looks like almost like an impersonation attempt. You better be careful with this. Not all providers do that. My hope is AI gets really good at spotting the obvious low-hanging fruit here, where there's typo squatted domain names, or the email came from Justin ITee, ATEE Walker, not IT Walker, right? Like those little impersonation changes can be really, they matter.
Microsoft's tenant has a lot of valuable stuff for domains, demarcs, and all of that, but you have to go through you have to really set it up. There's a lot. I've been doing it for my business right now. It takes time and understanding.
Have you set up any of the newer DNS protections? I know there's, in MX Record world, there's SPF, Sender Policy Framework, there's DKIM and DMARC. What are all the latest cybersecurity settings MX Record land? Question mark. Because I think there's a new one that goes beyond SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. I should know about it.
Really?
Yeah, let me just take a quick peek. Essential email
I'm on the
security
dmarc.org site too, on their mailing list.
So it starts, AI says, well, SPF, everybody knows that's a text record. Who can send mail on behalf of your domain? DKIM is used for cryptographic signatures to say, yes, this email came from the domain it says it came from. DMARC is how to handle failures of SPF and DKIM. Here's the new one that I thought there was a new one called BIMI, Brand Indicators for Message Identification. And it displays your verified logo next to email to boost trust. So if you've got a logo, we have a logo, you have a logo, you set up BIMI, it includes your logo in the email to help people believe, hey, this really did come from CyberHoot or the Multiverse Podcast. There's one more called MTASTS, Mail Transfer Agent Strict Transport Security, enforces TLS encryption for SMTP connections between mail servers. So that's not something that most people on this would ever worry about for their business. It's your mail provider. You might ask them, hey, are you configuring MTASTS? And they'll be like, what's that? Well, it's just making sure.
And like we're using Cloudflare, and it really helps with a lot of that. They'll walk you through it, get set up. I love Cloudflare. It's amazing.
So I guess the only new thing that you might think about as a business owner is BIMI, BIMI. Yeah. That might be nice to have your logo appear beside your name or your email address. Again, it displays your verified logo next to emails to boost trust. It's a nice to have feature for you to set up.
I feel like the logo would have to be simple, because that could still be spoofed. They could create something.
Yeah, off by a little bit, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
artificial.
I'm not gonna remember what color this is, or this is on the left side.
No matter what we set up, hackers are gonna find a way around it. That's the truth. That's the honest truth. Yeah.
Like you have us, you have the hackers, and this is like a never-ending battle of information, data privacy, security breaches. It's who gets to the top, It's a race to the top, man, and it can be very overwhelming. But just having these conversations and talking to people like us, we can make it easier to understand because remove that fear.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing. I think for the average business owner listening to this or the average person, you don't have to be the Fort Knox of businesses to be safe online, generally speaking. You should have cyber insurance for when a catastrophic event occurs. But if you implement the best practices that we're talking about, freeze your credit as a person, set up BB and security on your domain name as a business owner. These are best practices that tell the hacker who's looking at you, these people know what they're doing. I'm going to go down the street to the dark house that has no gate and no cameras, and the front door might be open or the window's open. You're trying to be, there's an old saying, right? If you're getting chased by a bear in the woods, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun Justin.
I keep trying to tell people stuff like that too. Everything is a deterrent. Nothing is 100% safe. You're just trying to make it harder for them to the point where they go and find an easier target. You can be a multi-million-dollar business, or you can be a business that does less than $5,000 a month or something. Any one of you could be a target based upon how hard you make it for them to come in.
And that $5,000 business might have work with that $50 million business, right? You might have the keys to get in after hours to clean that $50 million business as a $50,000 cleaning company. And hackers will target you for that reason, not because you have something of value financially directly, but because you have physical access to a building they're targeting. So that was the target breach from 15 years ago. Hackers got onto the Wi-Fi security. No. Was it Target? I might be mixing things up. Yes, it was Target. So the HVAC vendor that had remote access into a lot of the US-based Target stores to turn the AC up or down in the summer, turn the heat up or down in the winter. Hackers targeted the HVAC vendor, broke into them, and then they had a VPN into the targets. And so they deposited their PCI terminal credit card malware to scrape credit cards on the terminals. So it was an indirect attack because of what they had access to. So these kinds of things, if you're a small business, you can be targeted just because of who you do business with.
100%. With healthcare, a lot of the times that people get into the system is through the third-party vendors. A lot of them don't have the right security in place that they need or should, even with the BAAs in place.
That's right.
The vendors still aren't really doing the right thing. But that limits the liability, but it doesn't completely remove it.
That's right. That's why we're all getting those third-party vendor management questionnaires to assess our level of risk to operate and to support the businesses that are out there relying on us.
They're pushing that hard on managed service providers right now.
TPRM audits are coming in right, left, and center. That's why
a lot of these guys don't know what to do or they don't know how to do it. They're like, I just want to fix the computers, but you have to be safe now as well.
Yep. So we're getting our SOC 2 Type 2 at CyberHoot just to be able to answer all the TPRM assessments, because they generally accept a TPR. A TPRM assessment will take a SOC 2 Type 2 audit opinion. It's not a certification. Don't call it that. It's an opinion from a CPA firm that if everything you say is true and what we texted and looked at seem to be, then you should be a good, safe risk for any vendor wanting to do business with you.
Yeah, I agree with that, because we're working on our TrustSmart, our cybersecurity TrustSmart through CompTIA, but now it's GTIA?
Yep, they went through a rebranding.
I don't know if I like that. I don't know about that. I like CompTIA. I grew up with them, got my certifications with them. Yeah. Now they're all high and mighty now. Whatever, guys.
I think it was a financial decision for them at some point in the recent past. If my friend Chris Johnson is listening to this, he works at the GTIA.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, he was part. He was. I don't think he had any decision in the sale of their CompTIA name to
that started with
some learning management system, but he certainly has felt the wrath and complaints of people saying, what the heck? I like CompTIA. It had a cachet to it. People knew what that certification meant. TIA doesn't ring a bell for anybody yet. So
it's like Microsoft changing their name, the Azure to Intra now. I still don't know how I feel about that, but I guess that's their company. That's their decision. We want to have some actionable takeaways for our audience today? What's some things that they can do now and solutions that actually help them prevent identity theft in the future?
So the first was go to the website, cyberhoot.com/blog, get to the identity theft article and read it and follow its directions to freeze your credit. Each time you go to one of those credit providers, credit bureaus is what they're called, you're going to have to create an account. So to do that and to do it safely and securely, Justin and I know, everyone listening to this knows and has already adopted a password manager to secure those credentials and accounts and keep everything unique. But maybe if you haven't, you should do it as this part of this exercise. Adopt one and learn how to use it. There are some wonderful ones out there. And then along the way, accept any passkeys that are offered to you and continue to ensure you're using unique passwords that are long and strong in your password manager, but freeze your credit. And then outside of that, we've talked about limiting your social media profile and the people you connect to and accept messages from, right? There's a lot of impersonation attacks out there. So that's just a best practice to be aware of. But ultimately here, our message to take home is you don't want to have a fire station across the street put out an active fire in your house. You want the fire to never start to begin with. Just as Ben Franklin said, 200 plus years ago about fire prevention is what it was, but I use it for cybersecurity today. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And trust me when I say it's more than a pound of cure. You have to go to court. You might not be able to close on your house. You have to prove you are who you say you are. And it can take days and days and is very painful. Just best not to let that happen to you in the beginning.
I love that. Very well said. Don't be reactive, but be proactive in your life, your cybersecurity. Take care of things before they happen. Because sometimes you put those fires out after they burn, the damage is already done. The pieces never go back the same again.
Can I throw? So you're listening to this, you say, "Oh, that Craig and Justin, they seem to know what they're talking about." I wonder what we could do with CyberHoot. Well, we give it away free for individuals. So anybody listening to this that wants to get a little bit better at cyber literacy skills can go to cyberhoot.com/individuals and you can register. We'll send you a welcome email, free videos that explain cybersecurity in layperson terms and best practices like what we're talking about today. And then once a month, you'll get a new video. Once every 3 months, you're going to get a positive reinforcement phishing simulation. It's not the gotcha kind of, did you click on that fake email that we sent to you? It's not that. It's a, Justin, here's your phishing simulation. Learn the rubric in the moment when you're taking the simulation to learn what to look for on the sender and the subject and the greeting and the spelling, punctuation, and grammar, the links, the attachments, the urgency and emotionality that are built into hacker emails to get you to react instead of respond. We teach all of that. And we do it in a fun, entertaining way that really is engaging. Because the biggest enemy today we're finding to cybersecurity knowledge is disengagement. Employees are giving up. They are discouraged. They are sick and tired of 45-minute videos or failing a fake email phishing test, and they disengage. And so they aren't learning. Well, we make it fun and entertaining to get that engagement back and to teach these relatively simple skills, similar to what we're talking about today, but require just a little bit of engagement to learn. So that's what we do. And we give it away free. Our hope is that if you like it, you bring it to your company, right? Sign up your whole company, thousands and thousands of people, right? And Justin, you've signed up to resell us, right? I think, aren't you?
Yes, I'm actually going to have my demo with you guys soon as well to really go through everything.
Wonderful.
So I'm excited for that because also I've been preaching on here about the human-centric approach to cyber that is left out of this industry. And I'm going hard on that right now, real hard on it.
It's common sense, and it's 80 years of psychology theory proves that positive reinforcement changes behaviors. Punishment does not. So stop punishing employees.
Yes, we need to alleviate that fear that we have out there as well. By just going through this training, it'll help us feel more of a productive employee and human being in our lives and our businesses. I want to thank you again, Craig, so much for coming on here again. This has been real fun. We have to do another deep dive or something eventually. This is fun.
We could talk about session token theft and how that happens.
Yeah.
Because people get blown away by that. What do you mean? I have multi-factor. How does somebody get into my bank and my email if I have multi-factor turned on? Well, not if you click on things willy-nilly, but that's for another day.
Right. And I started actually a while ago having my cache been cleared out every time I close my browser. So yeah, but that's no story for another day. We'll get there, guys.
Yep. Great talking to you, Justin. You're a great host.
Yes, thank you so much, Greg. It's been wonderful. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
I will. You too.
Bye, Greg.
Bye, Justin.